As winter sets in, the conflict looks set for a new bloody phase, this time around Kherson. Ukraine's military today claimed that Russia's apparent retreat from the city is actually preparation for a false flag attack and that they expect civilian areas to be shelled. Kherson, in the south of the country, is the only regional capital captured by the Russians since February's mass invasion. It's politically important, but militarily difficult to defend. And in recent days, Russian forces have appeared to leave the city, setting up a new administrative centre south of the Dnipro River. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Porrick O'Brien, is upriver in Dnipro city. Porrick.
Krish, before this invasion, Kherson City had a population on a par with someplace like Cardiff, just over 300,000. There are just 60,000 people left in that city now. And over the last few weeks, we've been talking to some of the people stuck inside Kherson City. And they paint this very vivid, bleak picture of their lives in a sort of limbo. And here's why. Because they've been abandoned by the Russian proxy administration. They have Russian troops along the southern edge of the city. They have Ukrainian troops in the north slowly advancing south towards the city. And here's why they're slowly advancing. Today we spoke to the Southern Command, and they told us that they believe the withdrawal of Russian troops from the city is a trap. Not a trap necessarily in the conventional sense in terms of street urban warfare, but in terms of propaganda, that it's a hybrid war going on, that Kherson City will become a city on the front line of a hybrid war, is how they describe it. Kherson region itself is about 80% annexed, and tonight we bring you the story of one family who are on the sharp end of occupation. It's difficult to find anyone inside the annexed Kherson region able to talk openly about what life is like there. Testament to the fear inside Russian occupation. This man's elderly father, who's almost 70, was taken by Russian soldiers off the streets near his home in Kherson region in September. He spent 2 months in prison, during which time he was tortured.
He was beaten hard, and he was tortured with electricity, and he was beaten with bat. And his wife told me that he was tortured so hard that he was asking them to kill him.
We're calling this young man Slava. We've agreed to protect his identity because his father is still inside Kherson and is still at considerable risk. His father was released just a few days ago, and he called his son from inside occupation. But for fear that the Russians were monitoring the call, he spoke to his son in code about his time in prison and his torture.
And his first words were like, I was on a business trip for 2 months, and the business trip was hard. And I was like, are you okay? And he said, yeah, after surgery I'm all right. I have my hands, I have my legs, I have everything between legs. And the most horrible thing are like in a past.
His father was originally detained because Russian soldiers caught him taking pictures of destroyed buildings, suspected him perhaps of some sort of partisan activity. But partisan activity, it seems, extends to just expressing Ukrainian identity, as per the demonstrations here in March. So, there was a teenager in prison with Slava's father who was there for just listening to Ukrainian music in his garden.
There was a Ukrainian sounds, and he was grabbed, and they tortured him with electricity. So, you can find any type of people in the cells.
The mighty Dnipro River flows through Kyiv, Dnipro, and out into the Black Sea through Kherson. Most of Kherson region is still under Russian occupation, but in the last few weeks, Russian soldiers have been moving out of Kherson city itself, moving south across the river to consolidate a defensive line. As for Slava's father himself, he was released a few days ago. He developed a serious medical condition, and Slava believes that Russian troops wanted to let him go so they wouldn't have a body to deal with. Slava's father does not want to be evacuated, can't bear the idea of possible filtration on the way out, the Russian screening process for those leaving. People we're speaking to inside Kherson city have noticed a marked drop in the presence of Russian troops on the streets. They've told us about military bases and checkpoints emptied of soldiers. The people on this bus cheer as they pass one. This footage shows the inside of the abandoned proxy administration building. But the Ukrainian army is skeptical about the Russian military's withdrawal from the city. They believe that the Russians are trying to draw them into urban warfare, then frame them for attacking civilians in the city.
Most likely, they're creating some kind of provocation to convince the world, or their audience at least, that the armed forces of Ukraine are hitting unarmed civilian residents. To do this, they dressed the active units in civilian clothes and quartered them in the homes of Kherson residents who had left. They're not preparing for real street fighting. The fortifications they're setting up in the city are more like decorations, really.
There's also a worry that if the Russians draw the fight into the city, that may be used as a pretext for destroying the Novokakhovka Dam upriver, which would result in flooding. Back with Slava, he explains that because his communication with his dad has been in code to avoid detection, when they do meet again, what he'll want from him is detail. Detail, no matter how painful.
I have a simple question for him, like, how was that? I want to know everything.
Why?
I want to know for sure what happened, because it's very important to know the truth.